news because Honkai God Rail has once again became the God Rail of all gacha games, because after your streamer has been begging for this in the past 3 years, Honkai God Rail is officially releasing their 3-team Endgame content. Here's everything you need to know about this update, as well as how do you prepare for this going forward, right? So, number one, we are just gonna take a look at exactly what this is gonna be saying, called the Treasures Light Work Gameplay Update Preview. And no, normally Arbitration's 3-team endgame content does not count, because if you are a free-to-play and you do not clear Anomaly Arbitration, you lose no Stellar Jades. And in the realms of free-to-play, Stellar Jada is everything. So there cannot be any Stellar Jada gatekeeping, because if that ever happens, then everyone is gonna quit the game, right? So this is actually the first time where our actual Stellar Jada is going to come into effect with the addition of the 3-team endgame content. So with that being said though, in version 4.3, the crew will introduce this thing called the Star Word mode, and additional Stellar Jade rewards to Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, as well as MrPokke Shadows. You can activate Star Word mode when challenging the highest difficulty of each mode, such as Mach 12, after 4.3 and the corresponding gameplay is updated. You can in fact freely choose to switch back into the regular mode to challenge the casual stages, right? So let's take a look over here. Clearing the Star Word mode for each game with full stars will have an additional 100 Stellar Jade per phase per gameplay. So in a span of a 6-week rotation between Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, and MrPokke Shadows, there will be 300 Stellar Jadars in the span of 6 weeks, which is almost not even 2, by the way, almost 2 whole ass pools every 6 weeks, guys. Come on, bro. That means that in 60 weeks or in more than a year, you will get almost 20 pools, chat. Alright, that is absolutely absurd. God Rail is God Rail, right? So let's take a look at how this is actually gonna be looking like. I'm guessing you can see from the screenshot of the MrPokke Shadows, once you clear MrPokke 4, there's this option in the middle which will allow you to do the quick swap, right? The swap back between the Star Word mode as well as the casual mode. And a lot of example over here, what the actual fuck is Star Word mode? Alright, the highest difficulty, so it's gonna be Mach 12, MrPokke 4, as well as Pure Fiction 4, will change into a new mode requiring the Trailblazer to form 3 different teams to challenge 3 stages right here, including a newly added Star Word stage and the 2 regular stages. The Star Word stage is slightly more difficult than the regular stages, and the Trailblazers can strategically arrange 3 teams to take on a challenge based on each enemy. So for individual stages, you can freely adjust and retry separately, which pretty much just means TLDR, this is Anomaly Arbitration for your 3 endgame content, right? So you can see from this example over here, you have their respective buffs for MrPokke. So it is just like the exact same mode for they use for the MrPokke. You can choose your units, you can choose your buffs, and they added 1 more boss. In this case, it is gonna be none other than Evil Castellana with a separate set of, I'm guessing, debuffs and buffs, as well as their teammate option. Unfortunately, we don't really see this update for Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction, so I'm just gonna guess that for Pure Fiction, it is pretty much gonna be the exact same. You can choose another set of buffs, but for MOC, we don't have that buff selection, because MOC is just you pray to God that your units fit the shielding environment, and you just go in and it works, and if it works, fantastic. If it don't work, then it is what it is, right? So jumping down into our actual gameplay mode, you can see we're just gonna ignore Silver Wolf real quick. Forgotten Hall, pop this over here. So I'm guessing after you clear MOC 12, there's gonna be this option in the middle which allows you to swap modes, right? And then if you swap modes, there will be a third team over here, but there are no buffs available for you to select in MOC 12. So it is just straight up, I'm guessing, another whole ass team of 4 units.
Streamer that I always proud to watch.
Thank you, Ronadell, 19 months. That's very, very kind of you. Right? So this is going to be, I'm guessing, how the 3-team endgame content is gonna be looking like. And the general responses from the the general responses from the public is actually kinda different, if I can say so myself. So for me personally, I was like, God Rail is God Rail. But I also understand there are other individuals that are like very concerned with this update because the free-to-plays will no longer be able to access a 3-team endgame content, right? Because we are free-to-plays. Free-to-plays can never build a 3rd team. After playing this game for God knows how long, free-to-plays can only have 2 teams. And if you ever have a 3rd team as a free-to-play, you are done and you are no longer going to be considered as a free-to-play. So I would just kind of want to go through this a little bit, right? First of all, I have a little bit. Can't wait to see people complain. Okay, Blood got his 3-team endgame he was begging for 2 years ago. Oh my god, they say it's slightly more difficult. Do you guys know what this means? It means you have 20 million HP inflation amount. That is what I see. Thank you so much, Dendroman. That's very, very cool. It is in fact happening in version 4.3. Zealous Zone 0 War. I saw people complaining. Ready for this endgame. Okay, a power creep notification, the best, right? So just a quick little bit of a comment. Oh, and there we do, and there it is. Okay, at this point, I'm just gonna jump into my thought process from both the perspective as the HSR expert that owns every single unit on his main account except for Casters, as well as the HSR expert that has a side account for version 3, and that is gonna be our free-to-play Ballboo account, right? Before we jump into the Ballboo account, for my main account, I don't think there will ever be any issues whatsoever. I will just be using this opportunity to test out more different endgame challenges, more different content, more teams for y'all to see, more work for my editor, more overworking, more. So it is all gonna be an overall W for everyone and their moms. So I just see that as a overall benefit for this main account, if I can say so. I wouldn't even be concerned with whether or not we can clear this and get our free 100k, because we are definitely going to be able to clear on our slightly less relatable light spender account. So that's pretty much it, right? I think it's going to be a little bit more interesting to see because it is going to be a 3-team endgame content, right? At some point, you have to ask yourself, how do you balance out the difference between either vertical investments with regards to your multiple different team comps and their respective islands, or straight up going for horizontal investment to make that 3rd team? Because I think for a lot of players, especially free-to-plays, the biggest question in your mind right now is probably, do I go for vertical supports or do I go for horizontal supports? Higher on a specific team or wider for more teams, especially now that we have an upcoming 3-team endgame content. And for that, I will just kindly divert you guys to my yapping session on my thought process as a free-to-play player, right? Okay, we're just doing this. As of right now, my free-to-play account is able to do a 6-star anomaly arbitration, running a 3-star on a nerfed Remembrance flagship by pulling out my Sireni into Mighty's team, 1-star on my this is a 2-cost team, by the way. E0 S0 Gallagher, E6 Gallagher, E6 RMC, running the free like code, E0 S0 Mighty. Oh wait, this is 2.5 costs, because it's E0 S1 Sireni for a 1-star clear, and our 2-star clear is gonna be our E1 Archer, E1 S0, E0 S0 Spargo, E0 S1 Sunday, which I personally think this was just a huge waste of my pools, as well as an E0 S0 DHPD. I believe at this point in time, new players to HSR can no longer get DHPD. And then what? But for the old players who have played this before the free sustain went away, I think DHPD has been an absolutely insane amount of value, especially when it comes to the 3-team endgame content, right? So with all that being said and done, the way I see myself preparing my free-to-play account to tackle a full clear on all 3 endgame content. Okay, number one is I don't really know what is the criteria for their 3 stars. Like, do I just need to clear this in like whichever amount of score? Like, do I still need 3300 for this to qualify as a clear? Or can I just like get any amount of like action value for MrPokke? Can I clear my third half in MOC 12 with like 20 cycles remaining? Right, can I clear pure fiction with like 10,000 points? I don't think it's gonna be the case, but I will want to see what is the brand new criteria for 3-star. And with that being established, assuming that it is gonna be a direct copy of whatever conditions we have right now. So pure vision is 60k, MrPokke is 3300, and then MOC is just 3-star clear within 10 cycles, right? So if this is gonna be a addition on top of that, I will assume that MOC 12 is gonna take 15 cycles. So 5 plus another 5. Then pure vision is gonna be 60k times divided by 2 times 3. So that's gonna be 90k pure vision. And then MrPokke shadows is gonna be 6600 times 3, which is 9900. That is what I am guessing will happen if they take the exact same conditions to our previous 3-star clear, right? But they did say specifically for the 3rd stage of the boss, it is slightly more difficult. Keyword being slightly. It is a very dubious term, right? A very vague term on how they would increase the difficulty, because at the end of the day, this is just another boss, right? It is just another boss with the same mechanic that they fought back in previous endgame rotations, right? It's not the first time we're fighting Flame Weaver, so assuming this is gonna be the very, very first refresh, how would they make this slightly more difficult? Will they do more damage? Will they need more damage to die? Will they have new shielding mechanics? Will this motherfucker say, if you run elation unit, you win the game? So we'll see how this slight difficulty increase will work for the 3rd boss stage. And with that being established, my current 3 teams, strongest is definitely gonna be our Remembrance flagship, with or without Cyrene. So this is gonna be an E1 tribute, which was originally used for my Chaos Race team without Cyrene anyways, or with Cyrene. I think this team is definitely, from my perspective as a free-to-play, the strongest team on my account. Full 8 cost investments, easy as everyone else. For all of my other teams, they are like a lot lower cost-wise, which is why as a free-to-play account, you can see over here, I have 427 pools saved up as a complete free-to-play. I have not invested in anything else ever since we got that E1 Evernight, which I didn't even activate. So the way I see it is, if I can save up all these pools in version 4 and I do not commit for the Elation flagship, then I would be in a very, very good position in version 5 to commit for another 8 costs in the version 5 flagship. Then I'll replace one of my low cost units here, either the E0 S0 Mighty or the E1 S0 Archer, whichever it's gonna be, or maybe we could still run both of them depending on what the next enemy is gonna be like. And then we have Remembrance flagship 1, version 5, right? Not version 4, version 5 flagship 2. So that is gonna be our second team. And then our 3rd team is a lot more fluid, either being E1 Archer, E0 Mighty, or E0 S0 Dihara. But I think between these 3 different units, assuming that I do invest in the version 5 flagship, I would say the best bet right now is probably E1 Archer, just because E1 Archer synergizes very, very well with Sparkle, DHPD, and then this last stop, it could technically just be RMC. So it is a very cost-efficient team. It is almost a 0 cost team. Sunday is just a little bit homeless, which honestly, if you think about it, I think I could make Sunday work with my day if I want to commit for either an E2 Cyrene or the E1 Mighty vertical investment. But honestly, this is like a little bit of a high cost, and I want to keep my cost investments as low as possible, right? That is like my goal as a free-to-play. I'm not chasing 0 cycles as a free-to-play. I'm chasing what units and light cones can I pull on my free-to-play account to get the highest amount of endgame performance after spending set strategies. Which is why I want to say over here, as of right now, Sunday is the least amount of value on my free-to-play account. I'm not saying Sunday is a bad unit, but in terms of the strategies I spend to get Sunday compared to how frequently do I actually use Sunday, his value is just very, very low because I just generally don't really use him that much anyways. And if I have to, it is just looking extremely replaceable. Can you imagine if I didn't get Sunday here and I got Servidra, my Archer team would be performing substantially better. Or if I were to take out Archer and just run it at Nexa, it will also perform substantially better. So Sunday is just gonna be, as of right now, I would say the biggest mistake on my free-to-play account. Again, not to say Sunday is bad. It is just that different team comps and different accounts will have their different needs and wants, right? So that is pretty much it. Between that though, I am slightly leaning towards, if they were to rerun Mighty again, I am honestly leaning towards getting E1 Mighty. Because E1 Mighty's effect, if you take a look over here, it's actually really good because it essentially turns your DPS targeting from a destruction targeting tree into a full-on evolution targeting. So this will actually hit every single enemy, making Mighty also viable for pure friction or any sort of mob-based content. And on top of that, you are gonna be increasing the damage multiplier by 30% straight up. So I think this E1 is honestly really good, and it makes Mighty a lot more versatile for the different kind of endgame content I'm gonna bring in, which is also why I'm leaning towards E1 Mighty over, for example, potential women. Like for example, E2 Herda, right? E2 Herda is honestly a very strong item upgrade, but first of all, it's 2 costs, right? It's 2 costs versus 1. And both my Herta and Mighty do not have that signature. Okay, this is my current relatable account. This is gonna be an E0 S0 Herta compared to my E0 S0 Mighty for free to play, right? And for both units not having that signature, Herta's signature is substantially more important because of the skill point regeneration. On top of that, if you want to get yourself the E2, right? So, not to say Herta's bad, but cost-wise, you would need a lot more to make her try to match up to the caliber. Whereas for Mighty, I technically just need to spend 1 cost for E1, and I could just theoretically run a Rebel Icon. If I really like Mighty, I could consider going for the S1, but as of this moment, that is what I am leaning towards. Y'all can feel free to let me down in the comments below on how I should be going about my vertical investments for my free-to-play account to at least full clear endgame content. Because my goal for Bob, okay, I need to stop Mighty from moaning. My goal for Bob has always been, as long as our free-to-play accounts can full clear endgame content. Full clear, right? For A-Box Shadows, Pure Fiction, and Memory of Chaos, full clear means you get every single possible strategies. For my Anomaly Arbitration, even if you do not get a full 9 out of 9, it is okay because you don't really lose any pool income, which at the bottom line for I'm pretty sure most free plays, your number 1 priority is gonna be that pool income, right? That juicy 300 jade every 6 weeks. It will eventually add up in the long course of time. So with that goal being established, I would say as of what I see right here, I probably would need at least maybe 1 to 2 cost upgrade for one of the teams that I have as of this very moment. I think my Remembrance and my Archer, it shouldn't face that much issue because at the end of the day, Anomaly Arbitration bosses are more difficult than Memory of Chaos. At least right now. Maybe for the different tree endgame, it might not even be as difficult as compared to Anomaly, or not as shield to Elation, which I think is actually a little bit questionable, but depending on how hard it's gonna be, we'll see how this free-to-play account is going to be going forward with their respective vertical investment plans. And then one last thing before I bounce, I still have my final trump card. Till this day, my free-to-play account has never ever activated the E2 Casterus nor the E1 Evernight, despite if you were a real free-to-play player in my circumstances, you will 1000% activate that shit. But out of the sake of relatability to my audience, I have not touched this. Until this day, my Remembrance flagship genuinely do not need the cost. Because they are still 3-starring pretty much any stage that is going to be thrown at them, except for Anomaly King, which is just it is what it is. I will see if we do need to get this vertical investment up, because to be completely fair to Bob, right, the time for Remembrance shielding is already over. There's no longer anywhere near the levels of Remembrance shielding compared to the current rate up, and that's Elation. And if the Remembrance shielding is going to fall off, it would make sense to then invest in your vertical idolants for remembrance in order for them to keep up with a non-remembrance show environment. That is like my thought process behind every single free-to-play, because if you always chase a rate up, you are minimally committing like 6, 7, 8 costs for a whole new flagship at ESO S1, which gets very, very expensive in a long course time, right? Which is also why my second reason I don't want to pull for Elation flagship on my free-to-play, because technically speaking, I have 400 pulls. I can easily pull E2 Zero Wolf right now, no questions whatsoever. But if I were to do that, it means I also have to keep investing into the Elation flagship. So it will put my free-to-play account in a situation where I need to keep singing in more costs, just to chase flagships, and I can repeat this trend non-stop if you have enough strategies, but you don't as a free-to-play. So it will make more sense for me as a free-to-play to just go into version 5, get more concentrated on a version 5 vertical investments on their flagship, and then version 4 is like the time where my Bob is a little bit more thrifty, right? A little bit more homeless. We're gonna start saving up, because as a free-to-play, you can save up your pools. You don't need to pool for every single flagship, and use your pools wisely to determine which of these teams that you put back then deserves the vertical investments to make them keep up with the changing endgame content, which is always going to be showing towards the latest version. In this case, Elation, right? So that is going to be my 2 cents with regards to the latest endgame update. Is HSR done? Is God real? Is Greed real? All that kind of stuff. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Word of the day is going to be cause video one fine day. Join this code. Use code BOY for 10% gamers up. All the best. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you. But you want every character? Oh. You want every character. Let me give you an advice right now. A joke.